Heathens.
For the people.
For the motherfucking people. Yeah.
Heathens, Las Vegas.
I know. Every time we say it like that, I always think about Heathens to Las Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm in the dark because I decided that the overhead light was too much and now I look like I'm in a scary house and like I could probably make my own
Which is
horror film.
perfect. Right. It's perfect for what we're talking about.
It really is.
You look like you're literally doing a ghost investigation.
We have to have the spooky vibes for the spooky conversations we are having today.
Ooh, spooky.
Spooky. So today is monster folklore.
So I have a question for you.
Yes.
What monsters have you run into?
Well, entities are considered monsters, right? Are we
Yes.
okay, cool. So let's see. Okay, so I've seen shadow people. I've seen demons. I have seen creatures of the underworld, such as grims, like gremlins, little demon creatures. I always think of them
Yeah.
as like, you guys know the Disney animated Maleficent when she's around her green fire and the little guys running around. I have seen them. I have
Mm-hmm.
seen attachments that look extremely terrifying. I've seen some bigger gods. Like
Oh, that Sasquatch you saw too.
I've seen the Sasquatch.
The Sasquatch.
The Sasquatch.
The Sasquatch.
Yeah. And I have seen the Crossworlds guy.
Oh, Baba Yaga. No,
Not
sorry,
not
that's
I
Rama.
always want to say Baba
Papa.
Yaga too. Papa Blagba.
Papa Lava.
I have seen him. I have
Which I have
seen
him right here. This is him.
oh nice. I've seen Ghost. Um yeah, I think I think that's all of it. Right now I'm on the shadow people part of TikTok.
Ooh.
And while people might be skeptical, that is what they look like. And I feel like as somebody who does house cleansings and has seen them quite a lot over time, yeah, if you are on the shadow people part of TikTok, that's not fake. That's what they look like.
Is that the one you sent me?
Yep, that is the one I've sent you. I showed Trin. I've showed quite a few people, and some people, of course, are skeptical, which understandably,
Well, it
why?
looks I get it because like when I saw that TikTok and clearly, at the end of the TikTok she ran over and there would be no way unless she stopped the video, right? And that would be the only thing. But
Yeah.
they look solid.
They look like people in those morph costumes.
Yeah, that's what
And they're
I
like
was
matte.
thinking.
So
Yeah, yep.
sometimes when you're first starting to see shadow people, which is a terrifying experience in and of itself, the first time I ever saw one was, oh God, it's got to be like 4 or 5 years ago. It was the first or second night we lived in Jackson. And I talked about this in DIY house cleansing, and I saw one standing outside of Isabella's room. And it was absolutely terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. So, outside of that, not 3D, but in my third eye view, I've seen like astral creatures. Um, I've luckily never come across like a white woman or anything like that. I've never truly
Oh,
seen a
I did.
vampire. You did, yeah. What have
Yeah.
you seen?
Uh, the white woman.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, which was funny because like I don't do projection that often, but I was like, let me just see because it was at my aunt's house and she was like, you need to come over, and I was like, okay. So I was like, well, let me just see, because that's what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember in my mind, I remember walking up the driveway and opening the door and standing in their like kitchen slash it's like a three-way place, like the kitchen, the living room, and the other living room will all meet there and the door.
Mm-hmm.
And I look down the hallway because they have this really long hallway, and they do have like a window at the end of the hallway because there's a door there with white curtains. But I looked down there and I didn't know what a white woman was, by the way.
No, you didn't. I remember this.
So I looked down and I'm like, oh my God, you have a white woman. Oh my God, it's a white woman. Like I had no idea what it was. But then the funny thing is that fast forward and I was watching Supernatural again, and their first episode is about a white woman.
Well,
And it was so validating because what I did with her was, and Rocky helped me with this, right? Like I went to talk to him and he's like, well, you don't have to bring out the big guns or anything. Like you could just, and I was like, oh, okay, now I got it. So I remember talking to her like, I realized that you haven't been human in a long time and you forgot that you were human. So, and I could see in the, like in the sky, I could see a window open with light flooding out of it. And then there were shadow people in the light, but they weren't shadow people. They were, because the light was so bright.
they were shadowed.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kept saying, it's okay. You don't have to be here. Like, this place isn't for you. I realized you forgot. Like, I just kept repeating that stuff. And then she went.
That's so cool. I feel like I've gotten this question a lot based off of our first and second episode on DIY house cleansings and us just talking about our lives and what we've been through. I want to clarify that for the longest time, I didn't see things 3D, um, 3 or 2 day, whatever you would like to say. I saw my third eye, and I still do. So it's a very clear vision. It's there, but you're not seeing it with your eyes. It's like a knowing, you know it's there. You can see it in your head, and I trust it. But
Right.
now that I have been down this path, and especially this last year of strengthening my intuition, you could say, I have started to see things 3D, and some things terrify me. Told you guys in our religion and spirituality part 2 that I saw one of his allies who is a Sasquatch, and I saw that 3D, and it terrified me. And every time I see something out at Rocky's house, I'm always like, Rocky, you see that, right? I'm not crazy. Like, you see that. I just want the validation, of course, because it's
Right.
like, but that whole experience was to be validating because I didn't know that one of his allies was the Sasquatch. And so, yeah, I get this question a lot from clients that are listening. So for those of you that I'm curious but haven't been able to ask me and or forget, I do see sometimes 3D, and sometimes I see with my third eye. It just kind of, I'm not really
Depends.
sure. Yeah, I'm not sure what the difference is right now. Other than I have noticed that, especially at nighttime, I see ghosts a lot and I hear them a lot. There was this old Asian man that used to check in on me all the time. I think like one of his grandkids lived in the apartment building that I was at, and I would scare him and he would scare me,
Yeah.
because I live in a studio and my bed, I can see the kitchen from my bed, and I always keep my kitchen light on because your girl ain't sleeping in the dark by herself. And so um, I would wake up sometimes in the middle of the night, groggy as hell, and see an old, thin Asian man in my kitchen. And it's like he would duck because I think he realized he scared me, and I scare him when I see him. So I haven't seen him in quite a while. So I think that whoever's ancestor that was, he moved away. But it was really cool because I'd be like, oh, I think he's checking on me.
Yeah, I
He's just
remember
like,
you talking about him for a while.
yeah, he's gone though. I kind of miss him, I'm not gonna lie, because like it was almost like one of those things where, of course, it fucking scares you, you guys. You're not waking up seeing a ghost and being like, oh, okay, let me just roll over and fucking get comfy again. You're like,
Right.
you get scared, and then you wake and jerk up, and then you're like, holy shit, did I just see what I saw? So it's like, it just depends. Everybody's kind of vision is a little bit different when it comes to um is that clairvoyancy?
Yeah, it's
Clair
clairvoyant. Clairvoyancy.
clairvoyancy
Clairaudiency is when you hear it.
when you hear them, yeah, which I've had that since I was a kid. The voyancy came over time as I got older and more open and into this stuff. But when I first started seeing shadow people, they didn't look as solid as they do now. Now I can
Oh, that's
actually see
interesting.
them. Before they were kind of smoky, almost like apparitions, and then yeah, they've gotten clearer over time. So I'm curious to see what I can see in the future because holy shit, have I seen some shit. And it's always scary. But then once I know what it is, I'm like,
Bleh.
kangaroo fucking chest over here, like,
Oh
I'll be
my
a boss,
God.
scary bitch.
kangaroo.
I know, I can't help it. Now everybody knows my secret that I'm scared.
I know Rob said that he was gonna send you a kangaroo the other day through like Instagram
Nah.
or something.
A lot of people have sent me kangaroo memes since they have heard that I am actually truly terrified of kangaroos, and it is not enjoyable, but
Yeah, it is.
kinda. Have you seen anything other than the white woman?
So I had a weird dream back when I was a kid, and I never really had processed this, but because it was one of those things where it's weird. And so I had a dream that a vampire like bit me in the neck, but it was so real that when I woke up, I like felt my neck. Like I had to actually get up and go to the bathroom because I could even feel my blood drain. It was so weird. And I still like remember it per detail.
It's so crazy, you guys. I can't wait until we do our episode on past life regressions as well as dreams, because dreams can be so many things. It could be something that's happening here now, something that's happened in a past life, something that could happen in the future. It is insane.
Hmm.
And that felt like it happened right then, clearly, because like you woke up being like, I
Yeah,
don't
because
actually want to be a vampire.
I was like, oh God. And I like literally ran into the bathroom and was like, no, it
Right.
was so weird. Other than that, like I don't see things, I feel them.
Yeah. Which I feel like is harder, you guys. I truly believe that every person on the planet, every living human has powers. They just it's like a muscle that you have to work out. You know what I mean? Like you have to work it out. The more you work it out, the better it gets.
Right.
But I do think that having the feeling and the knowing versus knowing, being able to see it or hear it is harder, just because, especially at first, you don't know what you're feeling.
Oh yeah. And I don't know if it's you or me.
Yeah. And then when you can see it, you're like,
That's different.
it's
It's
right there.
scarier, but like it's different, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Scarier for sure.
Right.
But this is why I love horror films so much, and I haven't had one scare me in quite a while. Because, oh man, paranormal activity, man, that shit used to get
Oh
me.
man, that was
Talk
a
about,
good show.
I'm sleeping with the lights on after that.
Oh yeah. I'm
Because
like, I gotta
the light's gonna save me,
right, duh. It's gonna
as is my
save you.
blanket.
Don't put your feet over the bed either.
Oh no, we never do that. We tuck our feet into the blanket every single night because ain't nothing, for some reason, the blanket can save my feet from being dragged.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh. Okay, you guys, let's jump into some folklore because it's fun.
Oh my God, I'm so excited to hear what you got to say.
So I only looked up two truly because I know that Nicole has quite a lot, and I really want to hear what Nicole has to say too. But I looked up Michigan folklore because, as some of you know, well, most of you, we are living in Michigan,
Yeah.
specifically between Ann Arbor and Detroit. So we're in southern Michigan.
Hmm.
I guess you could say southeast Michigan. I don't really know, but um, we had some really interesting folklore because we had a lot of native um Native Americans that lived in Michigan, and these two come from them, but they both have relevant stories that have happened. When you really think about how long ago it really wasn't that long ago, and it's
Hmm.
crazy. So the first one I have, which, excuse me, I have to cough really quick, and I'm back. The first one I have is the dog man. Now, Nicole said she had heard about this. I have never heard about this,
I did
ever.
hear about this one. Yeah.
I mean, this begs the question, are there kangaroo men? You
Maybe
guys.
those are kangaroo men.
Ugh, scary. Okay, so the dog man is a huge folklore in Michigan. It has been around for a long time, but it really took flight and came into a lot of people's knowledge in the in 1980s. There was a jockey for a radio station called Steve Hook, and he recorded a song about the creature as an April Fool's joke, which, by the way, if you would like to go and listen to the song, it is on YouTube. It is called, well, I think it's The Legend of the Dogman. But anyways, Cook started receiving a week after it had been aired, again, as an April Fool's joke. This song went like our modern day viral, and it was the most requested song. People wanted to keep hearing it.
Oh my
And
God.
Cook received more than 100 reports of the creature's existence over the years after releasing that song. So what's a dogman?
What is the dogman?
What's a dogman? It's terrifying. It's truly terrifying. Because if you
Is it?
think about it, if you really truly think about it, you ain't catching me in the woods at
Let's
night.
go.
No,
Let's go. Come
no.
on. We're
Okay, you
gonna go
guys.
on a monster hunting.
Nicole wants to go on a monster hunt.
Come
And she said,
on.
I was like, I ain't going out there. She's like,
Well,
why?
fuck,
You
I'll
know how to
protect
use,
you.
she goes, you know how to use shears? And I said, what am I going to do? Chop his hair? Like,
There's
she goes,
steel.
well, you could use a machete. You know how to use shears. You could use a machete. And I was like,
Yeah, that's true.
Nicole, a
That's true.
machete is very different.
No, no, it's the same thing. I mean, you've seen the
Scissors.
length of my scissors. Like,
You see me out there whipping my scissors around my finger, like, yeah, boy, what? You fucking dog man. So a dog man is a beast with a human stride, so it walks on its hind legs, right? And a dog's head, described as 7 feet tall, blue or ambered eyes, and it's got the torso of a man, but the rest of the body is like a it looks like a werewolf. It's
I
our
was like a
werewolf.
werewolf.
It's our werewolf. And
Do
that
you think he has
apparently,
pointy ears, or do you think he has like floppy ears?
oh, it's gotta be like Doberman scary. I love Dobermans. They're beautiful. But like the difference of a Doberman with floppy ears versus the pointy ears, very
They're
different.
right.
All of a
So
sudden they turn
different.
into these super cute little babies, and then you get those ears on them that you chop, and I'm like, bro, that dog is beautiful but scary. I would respect that dog.
I don't know if I'm scared of it.
Apparently the howl of this dog man sounds like a human scream.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I ain't going on no monster hunt for that. I'm gonna hear that and be like, we gotta go. It's time to
Come
go.
on.
We gotta go.
You want to
So
go?
um again, many people over the years have seen this thing. This is a Native American lore. It's said to have been stalking the area around the Manistee River since the days of the Ottawa tribe when it
Is
lived
that
in
in other
Michigan.
states too, or is it just Michigan?
Yeah, so it originated from the Ottawa tribes in Michigan, but
Okay.
it has been seen in Wisconsin as well as Canada. So kind of it makes me think of like it does a loop of territory, probably Michigan, because there's a lot of water between our two states and Canada. It probably does a loop in this area.
Yeah.
How's it getting through the border? I don't fucking know. But I
He don't care about that border patrol.
don't give a fuck about the border. He
Do you
doesn't need
really
a
think
passport.
the border patrol is like, excuse me, sir,
Excuse me, sir.
we're gonna need to see your passport.
Do you have your enhanced license?
Ah.
And it's got starts like human howl screaming at it. um
Although to be fair, mountain lions sound a lot like human screams as well. If
so
you've
do
heard those.
foxes and coyotes.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude, terrifying. Man, I like you guys, I'm pretty sure you heard about our story, but when we camped out at Rockies, we heard that fucking thing that sounded like it sounded crazy. I was like, what is happening?
I didn't hear it. I was sleeping.
I woke you up for a minute. You probably were still too sleepy. It was terrifying. Even Rocky was like, dude, I heard it. And I was like, what is that? And I was like, Rocky, if you're scared, that doesn't make me feel better. I can't, I can't feel
Um,
secure knowing that you were scared.
it's just a fact.
um, okay, so the Ottawa tribes had this version of the story that they believed that the dog man was the spirit of some Cheyenne warrior who was killed off by the US Army, and now its spirits roam the woods and the swamplands. So the Cheyenne tribe was also a warlike tribe, and they believed that they had the ability to transform themselves into any creature they chose when going into battle. And of course they chose the wolf because come on. It's the
Makes sense.
scariest and the coolest. So
Yeah.
So, according to legends, though, the dogman appears in a 10-year cycle that falls on years ending in 7.
Oh, so how many years do we have until we get there? 4?
Well, I was thinking about it. I was like, so wait, year, I don't understand how this 10-year cycle that falls on years ending in 7, wouldn't it be every, so is it 10 years we go without it and then the year falling on 7? Or do we have it for 10 years? We hit another year that ends in 7 and then we don't have it for 10 years? I was a little confused, but I couldn't really find much on that.
We should go out there and check it out.
I know it has been reported all over the fucking place throughout Michigan, primarily in the northwestern quadrants of the lower peninsula. So if you're on Mackinac Island, you're good, but if you're not, you're fucked, is what I'm telling you.
Well, how many lives has it actually taken, first of all?
So actually, believe it or not, there's no reports of injury from the dog man. There's not one.
See?
I
He's a
watched
good
this.
he's a good boy.
Yeah, he's a good boy. He's scary, but he's good. I have a few reports. There was one that I watched of this kid in Wisconsin. Him and his family were at the cabins up in northwestern Wisconsin. And these two boys, it was this guy and this cousin when they were kids, they were playing and shooting each other with plastic BBs, and they were playing war, quote unquote, and they got into the woods, and all of a sudden they took a break because they were running out of breath. And the kid that was doing the documentary was like, I then realized that the woods were absolutely silent. And of course, we all know that that means, and if you don't know what that means because you're a city girl, that's okay. We love a good city girl. That means that there is a huge predator around. If the woods are silent, there's a predator, and everything went silent to not get its attention. So finally the kids, they like squat down because he tells his cousin like we need to like be more aware. So the kid's looking around everywhere and he locks eyes with the dog man. And they're sitting there staring at each other for a minute. And he's like, you don't freeze when you're in danger. And I was like, oh no, I talk about this with clients all the time. Okay, there's not fight or flight. There's a third F we forgot, and that is freeze. It is fight, flight, or freeze. I freeze. So he froze because he's locked eyes with this fucking thing. And he's like, all you could see was white teeth and like blue eyes.
Yes,
And
yes.
apparently its eyes were darting between him and his cousin, and they started booking it back for the cabins. He said that he could feel its breath on the back of his neck because that thing closed the distance between them and like hit it in seconds. But they made it back to the cabin. And he was telling his mom because he didn't want to tell anybody because he was like, nobody's gonna fucking believe me. He
Right.
told his mom that night while they were sitting out by the campfire, and his mom said that she had saw it one year because they live in Wisconsin. There's a lot of rural areas there, and she was driving one night and she saw it, and it ran towards her car and then ran off into the woods. It like veered off at the last second, and she was terrified. Another account in 1993, the year I was born. Yo, that's not that long ago. In 1993, there was a 13-year-old girl named Courtney who was terrified by the monster in Reed City, not crazy far away. She sneaked out one winter evening behind her house. She saw a 6-foot tall thing with the head of a dog hiding in the barn, and the creature was staring back at her. Courtney couldn't help herself but ran to save her life as fast as she could, trailing back to her home. That was the latest report of the Dogman, 1993. So for context, almost 30 years ago.
I wonder if there was these sightings, do they fit the pattern of like 10 years
So
ending
the
on 7?
No, because that one was in 1993, so it depends on when the pattern goes. I don't know if it's every other 10 years, because then there was one again in 1986. A man called Ray Greenway was driving home from the Manistee Army recruiting station in Michigan. It was late at night when he suddenly saw an unidentifiable creature running towards him and make an incredible leap clear across 2-lane road. Ray was stunned at the creature's leaping ability, and was convinced that it was some unordinary, or he
Yeah,
convinced himself it was an ordinary creature, but he was like, there was no fucking way.
yeah.
Because, of course, when we see things that are scary, we don't want to believe we're seeing the scary thing.
No,
No.
no.
Because, like, if I'm seeing some 6, 7 foot fucking tall thing with a dog's head, white teeth, and blue eyes staring at me, well, I'm gonna freeze. So I'm just gonna be there frozen in fear.
Well, I feel like freezing is better anyway because I'm not a prey. I'm not running.
Yeah. And mine is, I love when people get in the argument of fight versus flight and they're like, well, you got to give yourself a second to think about what you're going to do next. And I'm like, no, no,
No.
it's,
Besides, I'm not running very fast.
it's that noise in your head when like the TV show goes off and it's just like, wah. That's all that's happening up here. I'm dead inside.
Downside.
I'm dead inside. I'm not moving. I have no plan. Nothing's happening. I'm just gonna stand here and we're just gonna have to see what happens. No, this doesn't worky anymore, meaning my brain. So the only other one that I found very interesting, because I didn't know we had this either. Um, the only other,
Other,
um,
other, other, other,
mhm,
other.
yes, monster folklore that I found from Michigan that I found very interesting was Pressy the Lake Superior monster.
Oh,
It's the cousin to Nessie. The native tribes of the area spoke in their legends of a giant and ferocious serpent inhabiting the land or the lake that they called. I'm not even gonna try. They could the meaning for it is underwater panther. That's what they called Pressy. And represented in lore and tribal pictographs, she looks like it looks like an aquatic snake with spikes and spines, sometimes with a lion-like body. And it was known to be um it would drag anything into the lake that got too close to the water or to the like into the water. um if it was necessary to cross an area where it was said to lurk, then they burned tobacco as an offering for it for safe passage. And there were stories from missionaries back in like 1887, or back actually dating back all the way to the 17th century, of natives offering sacrifices to the creature as well.
like human sacrifices or just
It did not specify.
goats?
It did
Poor
not
goats.
specify. I don't know. Maybe it could have been human, but I'm not sure. Um, so there have been sightings of something very large prowling these waters, described as being up to 75 feet or more long, with a whale-like tail, a reptilian horse-like head, and a long neck, and it's like dark green or black. But many of the well-known sightings began in the 1890s. The most famous sighting of all supposedly happened in 1977 when it was encountered by a hiker named Randy Braun. Randy Braun got a picture. The
Oh.
picture is online. It's very hard to see because he said that what was looking at him was its eye and its face was out of the water. And it looks like this little, like, oval shaped area in the water. Granted, remember, this is 1977, so pictures
Mm-hmm.
weren't going to be as good as they are now. But he was at the shoreline of a place called the Porcupine Mountains Wilderness State Park. And on Memorial Day weekend of that year, Braun was hiking by the lakeshore when he says he saw something decidedly bizarre in the water. So
Mm-hmm.
basically what he saw was he had like a spotting scope. And tell me why he had a spotting scope and was looking out in the water. I have no idea. But what he saw was two very distinct dark bumps.
He was probably looking at ships. So a lot of people do ship watching while they're out there.
Oh, that's true. Yeah. So, he saw two very large distinct bumps out in the water. But when he started actually watching it, one bump would go under the water while the other would stay up, and it would just continue to keep happening. Well, they began to move east, he said, and to his left, and one bump would go under and then the other, but one bump always stayed atop the water with the other submerging. He said it became frightfully apparent to him that this object was close to 1,000 feet out, and as it gained speed, he realized that there was a third smaller bump and that the object was coming closer. It
Huh.
moved very rapidly, he said, to the east and quartered, and then it turned and came towards the shoreline where he was out. And it stopped several feet out in front of him and began moving and weaving around large boulders that were in the water, which you can see the boulders in the water from the picture that he got. He said it was big and resembled an anaconda with a girth of a Volkswagen. And he said, "Don't laugh. It wasn't funny," is what he said in his interview.
Don't laugh.
He said there was nowhere to go for him because of the slippery slopes and the water barriers, so he just jumped behind a boulder. He grabbed his camera, and as it moved towards him, it slowed down and was making a noticeable wake, which you can see in the picture. He said it was strangely quiet when it snaked towards him and stopped dead in the water right in front of him. He said he steadied his camera on top of the rock, fired one picture, but he was so terrified to move that he like sat behind the boulder for about 30 seconds. He said that when he got the picture developed, he also drew a picture to go with it, and it's basically a huge shaped horse like a horse's head is what it looks like, and a very dark eye staring at him, and the nose was visible catfish type whiskers. And so he tried to draw it. It's a very interesting picture. If you guys go and look up Pressy, the Lake Superior monster, it's very interesting to see the picture with the drawing. And I'm like, God damn, now I want to see that. That's
Well,
like,
it's funny because my friends Alexis and Luke go up there every year to the Porcupine, to um Munising and Grand,
wow,
and that's all around Lake Superior. But they go up to Porcupine all the time.
man. I will say, usually I'm very aware when I'm out places, but I, I, I would love to see something like that. That would be absolutely mind blowing,
Mm-hmm.
but also so cool, kind of terrifying, but also really cool.
Awesome, awesome, cool.
So those were my two folklore stories I had for you guys. With Pressy, the underwater, big sea serpent horse head thing, I didn't really find anything that really keeps it away or evades it. Other than, like I said, the Native Americans would burn tobacco as an offering and sometimes give sacrifices. I have no idea what the sacrifices was. I was pretty deep in a hole and I couldn't find it.
Mm.
With the dog man, they had said that running over water, like getting over a stream, things like that, helps. But it sounds like the dog man won't really hurt you, even though it's going to be fucking terrifying. There's no reported injuries, and there's over 100 plus sightings of the thing just since
Right,
like 1980.
right.
So I don't think we have too much to worry about with the dog man or Pressy, truly, but be aware.
Anyway.
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun.
What monsters do you have for us, Nicole?
Okay, so I went on a whole journey I read the book Monsters from John Michael Grimm. And so we're gonna start with vampires.
I love vampires, at least
So
theatrically.
absolutely, like the Hollywood stuff is amazing. We both are fans, like
Yes.
don't. So vampires were traditionally created back in like Mesopotamia and Egyptian times when kings, when they passed on, wasn't done with their reign. So they would do a ritual to make this person into a vampire. And vampires don't have like bodies like they do in Hollywood. They're just energy, but they need to be fed constantly. So priests would, their job was to feed these entities so they could continue their work. And when you had your first death, which is like when you die, if you can survive the first 40 days, then you don't go into the second death, which that's a whole thing that I'm not going to get into.
I'm so glad you say that because I was like, guys, that's not going to make a lot of sense for a lot of people. Look it up if
No,
you're really that
you look it
curious
up.
because
Right.
that's a whole death episode in itself. We would be here for 4 hours probably,
All right.
at least 3.
so these priests would have to feed them like food and offering, and so when food decomposes, it gives off energy. So they would feed off this energy, and that's how they would sustain themselves.
That's why at your altar you put food up for whatever deity, ancestors, mostly ancestors, I think, but that's why you offer food. You're given
Absolutely.
energy. It's an energy exchange.
Right. Nowadays, vampires are extremely rare. They would kind of go after their families first. Oh, so why they're really rare is because of our death practices. So, like, cremation is one sure way of getting rid of a vampire, and uh, embalming makes the etheric energy that you have in your body dissipate. So
It's
you don't
like
have that connection with your body anymore.
it's like etheric bleach.
Yes. Yeah, it breaks down the cells and it severs that tie.
So like vampires in John Michael Greer's book aren't vampires we think that suck blood,
No,
right?
no.
So what do they do? What's the point of keeping them around?
Nowadays,
Yeah, like when the Egyptians did it, why were
well,
they doing all of
because
that?
the kings were supposedly to do their duties.
Oh, okay.
So
So they
you like
wanted to
your
keep them
kingly
here
duties, yeah, you had to continue doing it in the etheric field and not just in
in the
the
3D.
yeah.
Okay, gotcha. That makes sense. How interesting. I love John Michael Greer.
Oh, it's such a good book. Oh, so then we have energy vampires that we know. Now these ones can become a vampire if we didn't have the practices we had, or if they like say they were murdered in the field or something and their body wasn't found, then they could become a vampire. They're most likely, if they can survive the 40 days, they would become a true vampire. But
All I
like I
can
said,
think of is what we do in the shadows, Colin Robinson.
yeah,
The energy. He's my one of my favorite characters. All I can think about is him.
yeah. Um, I don't know. Garlic is one way to get rid of them. Uh, that's it. So not a traditional like what we think in Hollywood, and they don't have bodies. They're usually gray mists,
Mm,
and they can't. You can either scatter seeds around, and they would have to count them all. And the theory on that one is that there's so much etheric energy coming out of the seed that they would be um, distracted with that.
interesting.
Um, what? Oh, I think that's it.
So what's the difference between the monster version of an energy vampire and like the human energy vampires that suck the life out of you? Because we do have those as well, you know?
Well, I mean, there's a lot different with them. They're people, and they have to be close to you to actually drain your energy. They really don't need your permission, I don't think. It's not like that. Um, and they could be doing it consciously or not consciously. I thought it was interesting. They said that a lot of like nursing homes have a lot of like energy vampires, which kind of makes sense.
Interesting.
Hmm. Because they don't, or if somebody is weaker in state, they can become a energy vampire because they don't have the constitution.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I've never
Hmm.
heard that or thought about that.
Right.
No wonder I don't really love nursing homes. It's not
Right.
it's not because I don't like old people. It's just because, sometimes those places feel icky.
Well, there's a lot. I mean, if we were going to do a service, nursing home and hospitals would be the main ones. Even if they just put out bowls of vinegar around would be amazing, or washed everything down with vinegar. Like
And
they
I
would get
have
rid of so much etheric energy.
so much. And I've had quite a few nurses and like especially ones that are in with babies, doing surgery on babies and or mothers with babies. They've seen so much stuff in hospitals, so
Oh
much
yeah.
stuff, so interesting. And they're like,
Yeah.
is that normal? And I'm like, do you not talk to other people about this? Because I'm telling you right now, there's multiple people on your floor that probably see the same thing you do.
Right. Well, they even have the whole thing of like, I remember somebody telling me that they had a bed that every time they put somebody in it, they would get worse. So they stopped using that bed. I was like, oh God, that's so interesting.
I wonder why they don't think to call for like spiritual cleansing.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of red tape, like I mean, hospitals, we could go on about this, but like hospitals aren't open to doing spiritual things, right? They're in a big thing right now where everything is red tape and they can't like they're always worried about getting sued.
Right? That's
And that's
true.
their main priority, which is not good, but that's where we're at right now.
I was gonna say, kind of is what it is right now, right?
Yeah.
What's after vampires?
So now we go to zombies.
Zombies. Zombie movies are my favorite movies.
They are really good.
They're so good.
So zombies are more on the hoodoo and voodoo kind of realm. And they have so what would happen is they would it's more like a trick, really. So that what they would do is the practitioner would drug them with a specific drug that would lower their metabolic rate so low that it would seem dead. So then after they were buried, they would go and dig them up and they would have a zombie.
Wow.
And it's just like a regular zombie. Like they don't think for themselves. They don't eat anything, I don't think. Can't remember, but I know they're not like the movies, obviously, because nothing's like the movies. But they do
But
get stuff right every once in a while.
but thank God. Some of those
Uh,
movies about zombies, those fuckers move so fast. I'm not like I Am Legend and is it World War Z, I think, or one of those ones?
World War Z and what was that one with rabies was 28 Days Later
Oof,
where
oof,
they
oof,
ran
oof.
too.
Yeah, no, thank you. Too fast for me.
Too fast.
Too
Too
fast.
fast.
I always joke if there's ever going to be a zombie apocalypse, truly can't see without my glasses. So I'm just gonna yeet myself out of here and do everybody the favor because your girl's gonna be the one that holding the group
That's
back.
not true. Don't talk like that. I will beat you.
Nicole doesn't approve of my choices.
I don't approve of your choices. Okay. So hopefully. All right, so now we go to ghosts. So there's a big difference between ghosts and spirits and entities and stuff like that. So ghosts are usually the ones that have like unfinished business and they keep like kind of repeating themselves.
Yes,
They don't really have like intelligence. Um,
makes sense.
or if they do, it's like the same thing repeated, like the girl that's hitchhiking because she got into a car accident. And then once a year she comes out and repeats the same thing over and over again. Um, so you can also see like a dead person. So somebody just died, like a family member or something. That is like a post-mortem apparition. And then they have continuing apparitions, which is continuing, like it's a continuing haunting. Crisis, like if somebody gets into an accident and they appear to you, like a family member or something like that. And then there's Purple Soul Ghost too. They either have some sort of it's usually unfinished business that they won't move on, or they're scared. There's graveyard specters that like roam the graveyard and kind of keep watch.
Hmm.
They don't really do anything.
Except for scare the living shit out of you.
Well, yeah. Uh,
Have you ever
we
seen a ghost?
um I think we saw one in, or I saw one in New Orleans.
Really?
Yeah, because they're just like people, right? So like they don't look like all see-throughy and stuff. Like, and I remember because I was dressed up as Death, and it was Halloween,
Oh, yeah, I forgot about this.
and she looked at me and was kind of scared and didn't say anything. But then my aunt was behind us, and she asked her for a cigarette, and I thought it was weird because for some reason she looked really gray to me. And I didn't put two and two together because at first you think it's just like some homeless person. You don't think it's like anything. And what was I going to do anyway? Like,
Who
you're dead.
knows? Could have passed her on. Who knows?
um, so that one was interesting because like I don't think she knew she was dead. And I kind of got the impression that she was like she overdosed or something like that.
Well, and you've had animals that you've had in the past come back too, right? Like Raya, Nicole used to have this big, beautiful Great Dane. We loved her. She was such a goofy baby. And I know
Yeah.
she's been back before because I've felt her at your house too before.
Yeah, she's been in and out. And I remember like shortly after she died, I could see her in the neighbor's yard and it was in the sunlight. And she was so big, like Egyptian dog sitting there, like, like this with her big pointy, like she didn't have pointy ears, but in this like vision, she had pointy ears. So it was
Oh,
very like Egyptianist. So all the experience that people have looked at, nobody's ever said boo, by the way.
weird.
Like, where did we get that?
I'd be curious to find that out as well.
Like, who says boo?
I don't even say boo. Even if you go to
No.
scare somebody, I scream. I'm not freaking
Right, right.
boo.
Oh, I did have this moment. It was on my birthday, and I let the dog out, and I was out there, and I remember it being all snowy and nice. So I was out there, and hold on.
Bless you. Oh, bless you.
Oh, thanks. That's fine. It's all fine. Um, I remember Pongo going to the side of the house, like the one that is the further side with the bushes and stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I think I heard footsteps first. You know how like crunchy footsteps on the snow? And then I heard a scream. And Pongo came out from behind there, and I went over there thinking that there was a little girl over there. And I went over there, there was nothing. There was no footprints, there was no like nothing. And I was like, I gotta go inside now.
You were like booking it back in the house. Goodbye.
I was like, okay. Like, I was like, And then you're like questioning yourself, did I hear something? Did I not hear something? Like I it's so weird because and a lot of times I think our brains are really wired to not accept what we saw.
Right.
Like we're not, we always sit there and say, well, that wasn't real, or that was just my imagination, or that kind of thing.
Until you get to a point where you start accepting it.
Well, yeah, and then you start taking inventory on what you see or heard or anything like that, and you're like, oh, shit.
Yeah, because now I don't do that anymore. I do what you said and I take inventory. And then
Uh,
people, when they're like, oh, that was faked, and I'm like, okay,
you can say it's fake, that's
whatever
fine.
you want to believe there, buddy. Whatever makes you sleep at night.
There was a whole thing about the old hag, how like um people reported the old hag sitting on their chest and stuff.
No.
So there is, and it's a lore in like, and I'm gonna mess this up a little bit because it was in the beginning of the book. There's a certain, let me see if I can get.
Really quick, was there anything in John Michael Greer's book about the Black Hat Man?
Which Black Hat Man? There was only the Slender Man guy.
The Slender Man? The Black Hat Man is the one that people reportedly see when they have sleep paralysis.
Oh no, he didn't have anything in there about that.
Okay, I was curious because, like, I looked
He,
it up one day and went on a rabbit hole on that.
oh, I'm sure. The problem is that they started thinking about tulpas. Have you heard of tulpas?
Can you explain it?
So tulpas are basically a thought form. Hold on. I'm
Sorry,
sorry.
guys. Nicole's not feeling too hot today. She's still getting rid of some energetic shit that we picked up over the weekend. We took this class that was not for us, but we didn't know it wasn't for us until we were in it, and it hadn't even started yet. And to be honest, we probably should have gotten up and walked away, but at the same time, you know what, we learned a lot. Um and we're still learning from it right now because we went through some shit, and so Nicole's still working energetically through that stuff.
Oh yeah. Sorry. I thought
You
I was
good, buddy?
no, I'm dying.
Are you gonna be a zombie?
Um, I guess if I had a choice, no, I think I would be.
I think that if I was had got to choose, I think I would be a ghost. I want to be a ghost. Um, just to check in on my loved ones, but also like I would really love to go to somebody's house that's like super unbelievably skeptical and like poltergeist that shit. And if you don't know what a poltergeist is, I want to throw shit around the room. I sound so evil, but I think that would be really funny.
I would do that shit. That's amazing.
I would do that shit.
We'd have to learn how to do it because it takes a lot of energy. So you have to figure out how to like.
Oh yeah. I need to learn if I can cross over with my knowledge of what energy feels like now, maybe I could really be a good poltergeist. Plus,
Remember, you gotta survive 40 days after your first day.
I may have to teach somebody to make sure to give me food every day. One of my clients probably would.
I'm sure we could find food. You know how much waste we have.
Listen, after I die, there's a bank account. It is going to pay you worth 40
Oh my
days
god,
of
here
just
we go.
putting out food for me so I can become the biggest poltergeist and nobody will know what to do because nothing will work because I know all the things that you're supposed to do to cleanse me out.
Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was Ghost. So with Ghosts, depending on what how disruptive they are, you can do stuff like iron. And ghosts are literally people without bodies. Like they're not always good. They're not always they don't have like a higher intelligence. Um sometimes if they have a light that shines through them, they're connected to the creation again. So they've like passed on and come back down.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a different type of like spirit
Yeah.
where they're not trying to feed off of people. They have their own energy source.
Interesting.
Let's see here. So the other thing I will kind of I think comes underneath this one too is larvae. Have you heard of larvae?
Not other than like fly larvae, like
Oh,
bugs.
so poltergeists are more like usually they're thought forms and usually they're by somebody who is created by like somebody that's highly emotional,
I
has
did know that.
strong emotions. So
Yeah.
teenagers are really good like and if they can't feel their feelings, if they're suppressing a lot, it'll come out as a poltergeist.
It's kind of like the buildup of energy.
Right. Which is also kind of like a tulpa, because a tulpa is something that you create through meditation and focus. The problem with tulpas is that once you create them and they get enough energy, it's almost like having a baby. Like you literally birth this like entity that you created. But then when it gets enough energy and it almost has a mind of its own at that point and can become its own thing.
Interesting. So it would also have free will like a human spirit, like a ghost.
Um, I feel like free, yes, but it's not really thinking with intelligence so much.
Okay, it's more like obsessive thoughts, things like that are inside of it. Like the one thought form that started to create it.
Let's see here. Let's see. Um,
I also might be thinking a little too 3D for this.
because obsessive thoughts goes with demons because you have obsessive and you have this one would be more like a because you can create artificial elementals too. So
Hmm.
if you thought too much on like an element, you could create a false like or a false um yeah, you could create a lot of stuff, but like I said, you have to be very careful. And if somebody creates a tulpa, the only way to get rid of it is just for you to absorb it because it's your creation. Like I can't
Interesting.
get rid of it for you.
It reminds me of a pain body where like it's a part of your energy that has created its own identity and it's not you because it's not you, but it's a part of you that you've
Right,
created because it's got enough energy on its own to then separate from your essence and create its own thing.
right. Like here's a little uh passage out of this. This is by David Neal, Neel, in 1931. So the features that I had imagined when building my phantom gradually underwent a change. The fat, chubby cheek fella grew leaner. His face assumed a vaguely mocking and sly, malignant look. I didn't say that right. He became more troublesome and bold, and in brief, he escaped his control. So, like these things can go on rampage and cause havoc.
Wow.
It's super interesting, and I know that this has just come into the paranormal research right now.
Uh-huh.
Um, and topas actually come from Hindu or Buddhist. Um, it's either I think it's Buddhist because she went over or he went over to Tibet and in the Himalayas and that's where he had studied. So it's the Buddhist tradition.
Oh, okay.
And there's a whole ritual. You can't just I don't oh well, let me say this. I'm not sure what kind of strength you need to create a toba. You know what I mean? Like I don't know how much energy you need to actually create an entity like this. And
Well,
furthermore, I don't know how you would really measure that because, like I said, you would have to focus. I think teenagers, are one of the ones that could really create stuff because, like they're in their room and they're thinking about the same thing over and over and over again. They don't have a job. They have school, uh, sports and stuff like that. But like, I don't, it's very interesting. And we would have to go down that rabbit hole a little bit more to actually understand that.
I agree. I wanted to mention the website called monster.fandom.com, by the way. There's also a lot of information on there that's like quick lookups if you need it, because it's interesting because they have a lot of this stuff on there too. Where I'm like, oh, I didn't know all of this.
Well, and that's the cool thing is like, do your research, like, and if it's something like if you're interested in it, then go ahead and do your research. But if you're actually experiencing it, that's when you really don't have time to do the research and you need to call somebody that kind of knows, like ritual magic is one of those things that would help you with monsters, but like if you're not a practitioner, you're not going to have the skills to do what needs to be done, right?
Right.
Then we come to werewolves, which I would say, what is the trigger warning for Native
Oh,
Americans?
if you're Native American, trigger warning for the S word. You will know
Yes.
what I'm talking about because we are going to be talking about it here in a little bit. So if you'd like to, you can pass on a part of this part. I probably skipped like the next 3 minutes. But I wanted to say that because I know a lot of podcast people will talk about this kind of thing and it really triggers those that are Native Americans. So the SK word's coming up.
And we could switch it to just shapeshifter instead of like saying the actual word too, if we want
Yeah.
to do that.
For those that do want to know what we're talking about, though, we are talking about skinwalkers. That is one time we
Yes.
will say it.
Mhm. So werewolves are another thing that were very popular in the urban legends and stuff. Um, they are they could be an animal that we haven't discovered yet. So a lot of times when you're doing monster hunting, like the dogman, like we could just not have discovered that animal yet. And that's one of the things they talk about. You really, when you're doing monster hunting, you want to make sure that you're crossing all your like you don't just jump into, oh my god, that was that. And I think that was it's like, well, maybe, like it could be, but
Mm-hmm.
like you want to make sure that you're not just like believing everything you see either. Because what do they say? Don't believe anything you read and only believe half of what you see.
Yes.
So it would be really hard for a human to actually like change into something. And I will say that in Supernatural, they do have shapeshifters in there, and they are, but they like almost like a snake, they shed their skin and leave like a soupy little like
Death soup. We've talked
well like
about death soup.
skin suit because they change their outer shell. And these ones aren't actually changing into like animals, these are just changing into different people.
I will say that the legends about the what we're calling shapeshifters are truly terrifying. I hope to never come across one. Because what do you do if you come across one?
Well, if you got your own like it's for and this is another thing that's super rare. It's you really wouldn't come across one. Um but silver's a big one. And if you can make your own bullets, but like you can't really shoot people, so they don't like that. But there's other things like a lot of times if they see a werewolf, you have to make sure they haven't like taken certain drugs and hallucinogenics. Uh, you can have a wolf shape and a human shape. They did mention the dogman in this book. And they say so when the full moon is very good for etheric energy. So a lot of times your hauntings and everything will be stronger in the full moon and die down more towards the new moon. And
Mm-hmm.
it'll come in a cycle instead of just being unless it's getting its energy from something else, which also could be. That's how where the word berserk. So there was a tracing legend, lore and legend back to Apostle makes a dim outline of ancient tradition of werewolf magic among the Indo-Europe Indo-Europeans in their ancient homeland, now known as southern Russia. And they were migrations beginning more than 3,000 years ago. Tribes would, so they would do like you know, when you meditate and you would basically astral project. So in these war times, the chief would like come out as, and people would see this big man, bear slash wolf kind of entity. And as soon as somebody found him in his tent and woke him up, that beast would leave. So a lot of times it's that too, where they would have a certain sort of ritual that they would make into, I guess for lack of better terms, is like a projection or astral projection, but that everybody could see.
Wow. Interesting.
And that was probably, you know, gifted, you know, or taught from, you know, King the Sun to, you know, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Um, yeah, because that's what they were talking. That's where berserk came from, like the word berserk. Like you're going berserk would be like,
Oh, going berserk is like you going into like your next identity beast or whatever.
yeah, yeah,
Your astral beast.
your astral beast. Um, yeah, and of course, you know, they always pick the wolf because the wolf's serene and efficient. Um, yeah, it's a lot more like shapeshifting than it is an actual transformation. So, and yeah, you get rid of it by silver. I think that's it. That's all. So I found this very interesting because we're going to go into Fae. So I thought it was very interesting because Fae and UFOs are almost being linked together, which I haven't heard this before yet. So a lot of reportings that happen with Fae sounds just like when you get abducted by a UFO. So um and I thought that was so interesting because it does kind of make sense, but then like do we not believe in aliens and spaceships and stuff? Or
Right.
but the Fae are extremely good at making illusions.
Right. Well, yeah, and
And
creating time warps.
right, right. So they're hard to pin down. They're really fast. They do get pissed if you disrespect them. That's why you really want to give offerings to them. Um, like we just went to a house cleansing where little shit was happening, like this happened, and this happened. And you and I came up with a solution that she needed to give offerings to the Fae,
Absolutely.
which they had just bought this house, and I think, uh, hold
May the
on,
Fae bless her.
seriously, they need to.
Yeah, so when little shit starts happening in your house, sometimes it can be Fae, especially if you own land. And when you guys own land, you want to either way, you want to give to the earth spirits on your land. You can create really good relationships with them, but the Fae can be what do I want to say? I want to say like picky and like they like to fuck around. They like to fuck around and
Yeah,
they
they like, that whole thing when people are saying that, they're tricksters and they like to mess around. They're like children almost, right?
yeah, they like the fuckery of it all.
Right. Um, so they talked a lot about sex too. So like changelings and how they would need, because they're a dying out race or whatever, that they would need human DNA so that they could um, strengthen their lines. So a lot of
Mhm.
times they would steal babies and replace them with other ones, or they would take a woman and abduct her, that kind of thing.
Right.
Um, and they're not. So I know that our or J.R.R. Tolkien, he has his own like thing about how they should look and stuff. So they are that's his own perception. Like that's not necessarily true. That's his own makeup, his world. Um, so obviously the Celtics and Chinese has a shapeshifter called the White Fox. The Celtics have their own non-human beings. Um, there's even coastal people like Native Americans that are in Washington State and Puget Sound that they have little Earths. Um, and there's brownies and there are other things like that. Uh, and I know that there's a large like community out there that are friends with the Fae and stuff like that. But you really want to, just like anything, you really want to do research before you get one because, or invite one in. Because if you mess up or if you're not doing what you're holding up your end of the bargain, they can make your life difficult.
A lot of these entities that we're talking about and creatures, boundaries are huge.
Yeah,
You want to make sure you're not getting into a deal with a being that could ask you to do something that you would never in your life do.
right. Yeah, because you don't want to get into it and then realize that you have to do something that you're not comfortable with.
Right.
Because again, they like to fuck with you. So the new
Boundaries.
manifestation is the UFO phenomenon, or more precisely, certain parts of a complex social phenomenon that has grown up the UFO sightings in later 1940s to 1950s, and in their later equivalent. Many things have contributed to the phenomenon, including psychopathical. There's we had that whole thing happen in the 1950s. I was trying to figure out where it was where they put these two together, and I know that they talked about like extraterrestrial ships being maybe like the new way that Fae are using this kind of like illusion to get what they need to survive.
Interesting.
So if they're getting like DNA from us, or if they're getting like to continue their own. I mean, who knows at this point?
That's interesting. I've never heard that before.
No, when I read this, I was like, oh.
Hmm.
And to put those two together, like, so there's a lot of confusion around Fae. Like when you start to look at the lore, the truth, like stuff that has actually been like thought about and researched and documented,
Right.
there's a lot of illusion that happens around them. Even like they talk about the Mothman prophecies as being like kind of Fae like, where you lost time and you didn't understand what you were doing.
Interesting.
But if you start looking at both like fairy accounts and UFO accounts, it's kind of the same. Like abduction, loss of time, lights, confusion. It's very interesting that they put these two together. And again, the one way to get rid of Fae is iron.
Hmm. A lot of metals are used to get rid of beings like this.
I forget what the I know I looked up the iron like thing, but I can't remember it now. So there is all right, I'm gonna mess this one up, but chimeras. Remember that one? That was like the animals together like a griffin. So it's
It's Ki
CH
it's Kai
chimera. Chimera.
Kim Kimras.
Chimeras.
I'm pretty sure. I remember hearing it and I was like, how does this sound?
Yeah, it sounded like so these are the creatures like griffins, like that are half like it's a pish posh of animals, like half eagle, half lion, half horse. These are your um anything that has been like the dogman's almost like that too,
Hmm.
because it's half man, half dog. Like the Jersey Devil is another one because it had hooves and it had bat wings
Pro-
and it had horns.
Probably the Matador too, then.
Yeah, the Matador would be one. Although they didn't put it in this book, but because I think the Matador is more of a god.
Well, technically, yes. This the story is that it is um well, I don't think it is technically a god, because a god is who tricked the wife of a king into having sex with a bull, basically, and they created the Matador.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
And then Minos is the one that defeated the Matador.
Minnows. Um, the Kubaraba. I'm horrible with
The
words, by
Koopa
the way.
Chabra?
The Kupachabra. Farmers in Puerto Rico were finding their livestock dead and drained of blood. So it was almost like a creature that was sucking the blood out of this livestock. It was 3 to 4 feet tall. It was thin, tailless monkey with gray, hairless skin, chest of long spines extended from their back. It stood upright on hind legs and hopped around like a kangaroo. Your favorite.
No thanks.
I'm gonna get you one of those.
How do you spell that?
It is Chupacabra.
Yeah, the Chupacabra.
The
Oh.
chupacabra.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's something I would like to not come across.
It apparently flied through the air and appeared to disappear. Its eyes were large, red, and glowing. It routinely left behind a sulfurous snake. Some witnesses claimed to appear to change colors from red through the colors of the rainbow to purple, and it could shift through spectrums of visible light.
Interesting.
So they called it like a goat sucker, a goat vampire in Spanish. That's what that means.
Sounds terrifying.
Well, as long as it sticks to livestock work. Dogman.
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 I think somebody else should come out with a new fun Dogman song.
We should make a movie.
I could use my little camera in the dark, you guys. I swear it would look so scary. We'd probably make a
Okay.
good horror film.
We would make a good horror movie. Film. I was gonna say horror movie.
Same thing.
Right. Okay, so then we go to mermaids. So mermaids are they can either be with a tail or without a tail. Um, they're not really sure because like they know that they said they if they cause storms or if they were warning people about storms to come. But if you hear one scream or sing, you should pack up your shit and go home because the storm's coming.
Pack up your shit and go home.
Go home. Did you watch that movie? This is before your time, or partially before, but Perfect Storm.
No,
I wonder if they heard it. That's a good movie, actually.
I'll add that to my watch list.
Oh my god, your watch list is ridiculous.
We're not talking about it. I have a lot to catch up on in life.
Right. Um, and they're not like sirens. That sirens were the ones who lured seamen off of the boat to like to their doom.
To lower what off the boat?
They lure them off
Oh,
the boats to their doom.
I didn't catch my 12-year-old boy hook. I threw it in, guys. I threw the 12-year-old boy hook in. She didn't bite.
I invite it, and I'm trying to do too much at one time. I can't. The seaman? Is that what the one?
There it is. The
Seaman.
seamen. The men of the sea.
The men of the sea. So mermaids are pretty good. Just don't piss them off and listen if they're singing. And again, this is another one that you look for hoaxes too, because obviously, a lot of people have tails now, and um, they're out there. We just gotta find them.
See, there's been some videos that have surfaced on TikTok of mermaids, and guys, I'm not all that skeptical. I'm not gonna lie, I question everything, but you know what? Sometimes I'm questioning why I'm questioning it's not real, you
All
know?
right.
Because sometimes I'm like, dude, that might be real because these videos are so good where I'm like, dude, it's people that are clearly hanging out by the ocean every single day, and like, what if they really are seeing them and then we don't actually recognize that it's real?
Well, that's the thing is that like the places where they see them, because I know that they thought that manatees were part of them,
Oh yeah.
and where they see them, manatees are in those places, right? Like manatees are usually warm, fair seas where like these beings or entities are being found in like cold waters, North America, stuff
Yep.
like that.
Yeah. It's so cool.
I may die. I just may die.
We all may die.
Yeah, mine's gonna be sooner than later.
We got to really get on that Sick Heathens stuff, album that we were supposed to make.
The
Nicole's
sick
part could
heathen.
come in now.
The sick heathens.
Sick Heathens.
So then they talked about dragons and I always thought about dragons because I was like, they definitely could have been. They're mostly more back in like, you know, castle time 14 and before that. And usually a knight would come over and like save the day. And they always had like hard scales, except one weakness. And they love treasure.
You know, they say that T-Rexes, they're getting new theories out about T-Rexes, that actually their bones fit the bones of what would be in the wings of dragons, not arms.
Ooh, that's
And that their
interesting.
sockets lay the same way that it would to have wings, not arms.
Well, that's interesting, right?
Yeah, we'll see how that theory keeps coming up, but I think that would be
Right.
really cool to find out.
Yeah, because I do feel like um we can't rule out dragons, right? Like not that they're no, but or maybe they are. We don't know. But um it's one of those things that's very interesting because I did say, and I thought this was convenient, of course, because I am a skeptic at heart too. But when you killed a dragon, it would immediately disappear. Like not like poof, but it would like disintegrate really quickly.
Interesting.
Um, and then everybody has lores on dragons. Like it's not just the medieval European group; it's also Chinese dragons. We all know that's a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, which is funny because I almost think it too of like, would it be also because they put different like things together, like cow's horns and whiskers, and it's like, well, would that be under a different category? It's like, okay, it's dragons, okay. So modern, um, well, I was gonna say modern times, but I think that was just about a book. It wasn't actually about a dragon sighting because I was like, oh, 1990, but that's not. I mean, 1909. Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah. So we're not gonna come across the dragon, but they do say that like maybe the Loch Ness monster is, and the one in Superior could be dragons as well.
interesting.
And I love this book because it really does tell you to like if it's a hoax, look for that. If somebody says that this stuff is like, oh, this is happening, you gotta look for the obvious. Like if somebody's doing financial gain for this, it's probably a hoax, right?
Right.
If it always happens with one person involved, then that's another thing that's got to be a hoax, right?
Right.
So then we go into spirits. So, like fae, spirits have a presence that stretch back into prehistory. But just as the fae, the minor difficulty in tracking that the presence in one of the drawing distinction between spirits and other Denson. You really should be reading this. I'm horrible at this stuff. So, so then we go fae, a spirit, a demon, or a god. These are the kind of things where they um, get a little more like uh, blurred. So sorting out spirits would be you could fill out the entire book with just on what is spirit. And so the spirits are like usually intelligent and they're intelligent spirits, elementals, and larvae. This is where larvae come in. So intelligence are ones that have like consciousness and they probably have bodies. I mean, not like a real body, but you would see their astral body. Um, Spirits are Okay. So spirits usually act unbalanced, especially a way that is misdirected and arrogant or greedy. Human being. Spirits, as such, no sense of balance or proportion. So if somebody's being like influenced by a spirit, these is where like alcohol comes into play too. Like somebody that like drinks too much and they black out.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times the spirit can come in instead.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like if they're acting weird or whatever.
This is when we talk a lot about attachments too.
Yeah,
Or
because this whole
basically, yeah, attaching to your bad behavior, your addiction, anything like that. Anything that they can get in during a certain time when you're unaware.
um elementals are the ones that do earth, water, air, and fire. So
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times those are your they would be your fairies, or what some people think of fairies are.
Yeah.
Um, but these would be the governors of each of these elements. And there's a hierarchy where like there's a king for just like they have in I think Midsummer, upon a Midsummer Dream, where they have a king and a queen. And I know that some of the fairy lores that's out there is they talk about that. Um,
It's also like that in Akatar.
and what?
My smutty book series,
Oh,
Akatar. For those that
Avatar.
know, if you know, you know.
I was like, what? So larvae is one of those things that I think we come up a lot, but we don't know it. So larvae represents the lower end of the scale of spirits. Larvae are etheric beings living entirely on levels of sub energy. Just as the physical world has scavengers, worms, crows, fungi, and so on, that break down dead physical bodies and return to their components to the ecosystem. So the etheric world has larvae who scavenge off the same function. So cast off etheric shells of dead human beings and animals, etheric patterns in feces or other waste product. Um, so these are the kind of things that we can get when we have breaks or damage in our auric field. We can get a larvae sucking our energy. And really, they're just like globby little things that eat
Ugh,
energy.
sounds like maggots in a way. Gross.
Yeah, every time I look
Ugh.
at them, every time I see them, I think of maggots for sure.
Ugh. I don't want none of that.
Um, and like sometimes you might have one if you have poor health, weakness, all of a sudden, stuff like that. But I mean, before you think of larvae, like at least go to the doctor and make sure you rule out everything else.
Yeah.
Because if it's something else, that'll show up, and if they can't find anything, then that's different, right? That's when you have a more spiritual kind of thing. Yeah, this is the one where they say that's what nursing homes and hospitals is where they kind of are
Yeah.
because those people are weaker, so they can feed off of them. And they look like pale, half transparent bubbles or bag like shapes drifting through the air or hovering around a food source. Um, oh, and then we have angels and demons. Um, angels are God,
Well,
it's so funny.
also for angels and demons, we do have separate episodes we will be doing on those too in the future, you guys, just to break it down even further than what Nicole's going to tell you now. Because there's a lot on angels and demons.
Yeah,
So much.
there's different, with angels, they have lore, and we all know the lores between Christianity, Judaism. I do believe they're in the Quran as well.
Hmm.
And they even have stuff like in cave paintings where they've seen winged creatures or winged humanoids. They're intelligent. They uh they have classes, so like seraphim, uh cherubim. So seraphims are the highest class of angels that radiate love and complement the divine order of presence. There's cherubims, which is an angel of absolute wisdom. There is thrones. Thrones are completion through the same process of contempt. I don't know. I don't know these words.
That's okay.
I'm struggling with this.
That's okay. I
It's
mean, we'll
okay.
be going into angels really in depth in the angel episode too.
There's dominations, there's virtues, and there's powers. Those are, and then there's a bunch of angels after that too.
Hmm.
There's a lot of angels.
Basically, there's a lot of different classes of angels. There's a hierarchy, and there's a hierarchy within the hierarchy, and a class within the
Yeah,
class within the class. And angels, there's a lot of information about angels.
as we will
I
know.
find it very interesting though that angels are in or in Greer's book.
Right, because I wouldn't think they would be in there as a creature or a monster, but I
I
think they don't look like what we think they do, and that we've been told they look way scarier.
Right.
So I think that might have been why, because it's one of those things that we interact with all the time, really.
Going based off looks, I would definitely say they can look terrifying, but then going based off looks, I wouldn't put demons in a monster book either because demons can look very beautiful.
Right, especially if they want something from you.
Right.
So demons are so possessions are harder and less common. What you're mostly going to see is obsession
Mm.
and actually what is that one? Anorexia
Mm.
is very common with a demon obsession or possession.
Yeah, and with demons, there's classes and orders as well.
Yeah, there's the same. Well, because angels and demons are literally the opposite of. And what's really good about this book about demons is it goes into how demons were part of a world that was before us, like a universe before us, and they're this chaotic energy. And so now that they're like fragments of this universe that used to live, but because it exploded or imploded, there's all these like debris of them. And that's really what they are.
That makes sense.
They're not like whole beings.
Yeah.
Because when you're doing ritual magic, you talk about taking your demon, whether it's like greed, I think it's the seven deadly sins, basically, and you combine that energy with an angel. And I feel like that's a very good way to stabilize that energy. So it's not so angelic and it's not so chaotic. It kind of calms them down.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of stuff about demonic hauntings and obsession and possession. Um, but you always want to, when you're dealing with stuff like this, that's the unseen, you always want to make sure you're seeing a therapist or to rule out mental illness
Yeah.
because you don't want to automatically think it's a demon when it's
A
something else.
chemical imbalance in your brain.
Yeah, yeah.
Everything's scary straight to demon.
Well, yeah, duh.
That's
Like,
the quote unquote rule of thumb.
right. Well, and like with demons, if there is one, like you would get uh definitely a smell.
Yeah.
Um, It's the
confusion, all
obsessive,
this
yeah, the
stuff, like
confusion, loss of time.
loss of time, yep. Uh,
But
very invasive thoughts.
demons can't possess you. They have rules and regulations, and we are stronger than them, actually. But
That's
we
very
feed
true.
them fear.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it for me. We talked about tulpas a little bit, and I think that's a very interesting thing that you guys could research on. Tulpas is one of those newer entities that have come up, and I think it's going to change a lot in the paranormal
Community.
world. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you guys, that was a lot of information.
Well, we didn't even get into like
And
what to do with them and like all that kind of stuff. Like we talked about how to defend yourself with them, and
I believe we're gonna have to do a monsters folklore to part 2. And
yeah,
then we
because
can
we
do a
could,
deep dive into like what to do.
well, we could even look and see if there's enough information to uh do a show on each one of them. Really.
We are doing some of them. Like I said, you guys,
Oh
we
yeah,
are
like with
gonna do
Amy.
definitely angels and demons. We have that in there, but we could do like egregores, tulpas, those kinds of entities as well. Like there's a lot of information on many of these creatures, and Nicole just literally did a little tap on the surface. Like she said a boop. She did a boop onto the surface of them.
Oh yeah, there was so much stuff to get through. I mean, even like just getting stuff to like what to do once you find out that you have one, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, like the Fae even. Oh my gosh, you guys, there's so much with that that we could just continually go into. So I think we have a few of those episodes. We're going to do bigger deep dives into a couple of those creatures that Nicola brought up. Definitely Fae, angels, demons. But I think we'll be adding tulpas and egregores to the list too, because I think those are
ooh,
very
egregores are
interesting.
really interesting too.
Yeah, and it's good to know what to do. It's good to know how to like, if you ever come up across this word, you get this plethora of information that we give you in the back of your head pop forward and be like, "Oh my God, I know what that is."
Right, right.
Yeah. Dang.
Dang, my head hurts.
Mine does too. You guys got some good notes. Monsters, John Michael Greer, great book, great
Great book.
reference book. It'll help a
Right.
lot in the future if you guys get into house cleansings, if you guys get into anything like that. That book is a great book to have on hand. Plus, it's just interesting.
Yeah.
So yeah.
And the best thing I can tell you right now is that if you have a space in your house that doesn't feel good, is put a bowl of vinegar in there. And it will help dissipate that etheric energy.
A
If it
railroad
keeps
spike.
coming back, railroad spikes are great.
Put
Yes.
it under your bed.
Under your bed. Those are great. Those are great for dreams and nightmares and stuff like that. So like if you have a child that's having night terrors,
Mm-hmm.
iron spike under their bed.
Yep. Do the bowl of vinegar too. It's all gonna help.
Right. So that's
Cool.
it. That's all I got.
Woo, we
I'm
did
gonna go die.
it.
I'm gonna go die.
Okay, peeps. So next episode's gonna be about our New Orleans trip, all about New Orleans.
Yeah, I love New Orleans so much.
So you know how happy that makes my heart. My best friend lives my favorite city. I've only been,
Ah,
like 7 times. That's fine. I looked into moving there once, but anyways, we'll get into New Orleans. I digress. We'll get
yeah,
into New Orleans next time. I'm just really excited for that episode because I love that city so much. There's so much to talk about with that. So,
yeah,
um, I hope you guys enjoyed our monster episode.
yeah.
Because I
So
did.
much. I did too.
Yeah. Okay. We'll let Nicole go and die now. So uh
I'm gonna go die.
we'll bring back her vampiric body for the next episode.
I'm gonna need you to feed me for 40 nights so that
I
I
will
can come back.
I will do anything for you with for 40 nights.
Heck yeah, I will do the Astric Well stuff.
I will absolutely do whatever you need me to do. You could be my attachment for the next
Yes.
40 days.
Ah, yes. This is
Okay, well,
perfect.
thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you in the next
Bye.
one.